First contact in the sanctuary. The Zalari Wildlife Sanctuary stretched across 300 square kilometers of preserved wilderness on Kepler 442b, a testament to the Galactic Alliance's commitment to protecting endangered species from across known space. Towering crystalline trees caught the light from the binary suns, casting rainbow patterns across the forest floor where dozens of species from different worlds coexisted under careful supervision. Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped off the transport shuttle, her breath catching at the alien beauty surrounding her. She was the first human to be accepted into the sanctuary's prestigious research program, a milestone that came just 5 years after humanity's induction into the Galactic Alliance. Her worn field boots crunched on the gravel path as Director Kethlin approached, his forearms spread in the universal gesture of welcome. Dr. Vasquez, the Zalathi director's translator hummed, converting his melodic clicks into English. Your reputation in xenobiology precedes you. The work you did with the Martian cave ecosystems was remarkable. Elena smiled, adjusting the environmental suit that would help her body cope with the slightly different atmospheric composition. Thank you, Director. I'm honored to be here. The biodiversity reports I've read about this sanctuary are incredible. Kethlan's facial tentacles rippled in what Elena had learned was amusement. Reports rarely capture the full wonder. Come, let me show you to your quarters and then we'll begin the tour. There's one particular case I'm eager to discuss with you. As they walked through the sanctuary's main compound, Elena noticed the elegant integration of technology and nature. Force fields shimmered almost invisibly, creating boundaries without walls. Monitoring drones no larger than hummingbirds flitted between the trees, their sensors recording everything while remaining unobtrusive to the sanctuary's residents. We house over 3,000 species here, Kethlin explained, leading her past an enclosure where luminous jellyfish-like creatures floated through dense atmosphere. Most are thriving under our care, but there's one group that has puzzled every specialist we've brought in. Elena's scientific curiosity sparked. What species? Vraxian cubs. 3 of them, orphaned and brought here 8 months ago. They're mammalian, similar in some ways to what your databases call big cats, though with notable differences. Highly intelligent, potentially sapient, though they haven't reached the developmental stage where we can confirm that. They paused at an observation platform overlooking a spacious enclosure. Elena could see 3 creatures lounging in the shade of purple-leafed trees. They were magnificent, about the size of earth leopards, but with 6 legs, iridescent fur that shifted from deep blue to silver as they moved, and large, expressive eyes that held an unmistakable intelligence. They're beautiful, Elena breathed, and deeply traumatized. Kethlan's tone grew somber. Their colony ship was attacked by poachers. These 3 were the only survivors we found hidden in the emergency pod. Since arriving here, they've refused all contact. Every species that's tried to approach them, Zalathi, Proxima, and Altarian, even our empathic Neptari counselors, triggers an extreme fear response. Elena watched as one of the cubs lifted its head, scanning the area with obvious anxiety. Fear? Response? They huddled together, trembling, vocalizing in distress. We can only interact with them through automated systems for feeding and medical care. It's heartbreaking. They're social creatures by nature, but whatever happened on that ship? Kethlan's 4 hands gestured helplessly. Could I observe them for a while? Elena asked, her mind already working through possibilities. Of course. Your quarters are nearby. Take your time. We've tried everything, Dr. Vasquez. Perhaps fresh eyes will see something we've missed. Elena spent the next 3 hours on the observation platform, making notes on her datapad. The cubs, 2 males and 1 female, according to the files, moved with a fluid grace that spoke of predatory evolution. But their behavior was distinctly fearful. They startled at every sound, constantly checking the enclosure's boundaries, never relaxing their vigilance. As the afternoon wore on, Elena decided to try something different. She'd noticed the cubs' reactions were strongest when observers stood at the platform. What if she approached from ground level? She made her way to the enclosure's entry point, where a sophisticated airlock system prevented unauthorized access. Dr. Vasquez, The sanctuary's AI chirped through her earpiece. "You're not authorized for direct contact with the Vraxian cubs." "I'm not entering," Elena assured it. "Just want to observe from a different angle." She sat down outside the transparent barrier, pulling out an old paper notebook, a quirk she'd maintained despite the availability of superior technology. The scratching of pencil on paper was somehow soothing, a connection to humanity's past that grounded her in the present. The cubs noticed her immediately. Elena expected them to retreat as they'd done with every other observer. Instead, something extraordinary happened. The female cub, the one the staff had designated VX3, approached the barrier slowly. Her movements were cautious but curious, not fearful. Elena remained perfectly still, barely breathing. VX3 came closer, her large eyes fixed on the human. Then she did something that made Elena's heart skip. She chirped. It was a soft, questioning sound, almost like a terrestrial cat's trill. Moving very slowly, Elena placed her hand against the barrier. VX3 tilted her head, then raised one of her front paws and placed it against the barrier opposite Elena's hand. The other two cubs, seeing this, began to approach as well. "Sanctuary AI," Elena whispered. "Are you recording this?" "Affirmative. This behavior is unprecedented," alerting Director Kethlan. Within minutes, Kethlan arrived with several other staff members. They stopped well back from Elena's position, watching in amazement as all three cubs now sat at the barrier, their attention completely focused on the human woman. "How?" Kethlan's whisper was barely audible. Elena slowly turned her head to look at him. "I don't know, but I think we should explore this carefully. May I have permission to enter the enclosure? With full safety protocols, of course." Kethlan's tentacles writhed in what Elena recognized as deep consideration. "This is highly irregular, but in 8 months this is the first positive response we've seen." "Very well. Tomorrow morning, with full medical team on standby." That night, Elena barely slept. She reviewed every piece of data about the Vraxian species, sparse as it was. They were from a world on the galaxy's outer rim, only recently discovered. Their adult population was nomadic, traveling in family groups. The cubs would typically stay with their parents for several years before reaching independence. The next morning, Elena suited up in protective gear that would prevent any physical harm while still allowing mobility. The medical team stood ready, with tranquilizers and emergency equipment. Kethlan and a dozen other sanctuary staff watched from safe positions. Elena entered the airlock. As it cycled, she could see the cubs had noticed her arrival. They were standing now, alert, but not showing the typical fear responses. The inner door opened and Elena stepped into the enclosure. The cubs approached immediately. Not running, not aggressive, but with a deliberate curiosity that made Elena's breath catch. VX3 reached her first, and what happened next would be recounted in xenobiology texts for generations. The cub pressed against Elena's legs like a house cat, a deep, purring vibration emanating from her chest. The two males joined her, and within moments Elena was sitting on the ground with 3 alien cubs treating her as if she were their long-lost family. "Extraordinary." Kethlan's voice crackled through the comm. "Their biometrics show complete, calm. Heart rate's normal, stress hormones baseline. It's as if they recognize you." Elena gently stroked VX3's iridescent fur, marveling at its silk-like texture. "They're so young," she murmured. "The files said they're equivalent to 18 months in Earth terms?" "Correct. Far too young to be without parental care. Dr. Vasquez, we need to understand this. Will you consider extending your stay? Work primarily with these cubs?" Elena looked down at VX3, who had curled up with her head on Elena's lap, eyes half closed. In contentment, the 2 males were play wrestling nearby, occasionally checking to make sure Elena was still there. "Yes," Elena said simply. "We need to understand this. For them and for science." The hidden truth 3 weeks had passed since Elena's first contact with the Vraxian cubs, and the transformation was remarkable. The once terrified creatures now showed signs of their true nature, playful, intelligent, and deeply social. Elena spent 8 hours a day in the enclosure, and the cubs had developed distinct relationships with her. VX1, the larger male, was bold and protective, often positioning himself between Elena and any perceived threat, even if it was just a maintenance drone. VX2 was the trickster, constantly stealing Elena's equipment to initiate chase games. VX3, the female, was the most contemplative, often sitting beside Elena while she worked, watching with those large, intelligent eyes. The change is miraculous, Dr. Yilan, a Centauri behavioral specialist, observed from the platform. But we still don't understand why they respond only to you. We've had 12 other humans try to interact with them since your success. They show the same fear response as with other species. Elena looked up from her notebook, where she was documenting the cubs' vocalizations. They had a complex language of chirps, purrs, and whistles that seemed to convey specific meanings. Have you noticed the pattern in who they reject? Pattern? Yilan's feathers ruffled in curiosity. Every human they've rejected has been either very young or past middle age. I'm 32, right in prime adult range. Also, I've never had children, while 3 of the women who tried were mothers. You think it's related to parental status? Elena shook her head. I think it's deeper than that. I've requested some specific tests from Earth. My colleague is sending equipment that can analyze pheromone signatures at a molecular level. The standard equipment here isn't calibrated for human biochemistry. VX3 chirped and nudged Elena's hand, reminding her it was time for their afternoon routine. Elena had discovered the cubs loved being groomed, and she'd developed a system using soft brushes that mimicked their parents' rough tongues. As she groomed VX3, Elena noticed something she'd observed before, but hadn't fully processed. The cubs' purring had a specific frequency, 528 Hz. She'd looked it up out of curiosity and discovered it was known on Earth as the love frequency, associated with DNA repair and healing in some alternative medicine practices. Yilan, Elena called. Can you run a harmonic analysis on their purring? Compare it to known therapeutic frequencies across different species? While Yilan worked on that, Elena's equipment from Earth arrived via priority shipping. Dr. James Chen, her colleague, had included a note. Elena, the specifications you sent were intriguing. I've included our latest biosignature analyzer. It can detect and compare pheromone profiles down to the individual molecule. Good hunting. Setting. Up the equipment took hours, but the cubs remained patient, seeming to understand Elena was doing something important. When she finally activated the analyzer, the results were immediate and shocking. That can't be right, Elena muttered, running the scan again. What is it? Kethlan had arrived for his daily check-in. Elena looked up, her face pale with excitement and disbelief. The cubs are responding to a specific pheromone signature that humans produce. But here's the extraordinary part. This pheromone is only produced by humans who carry a dormant gene sequence, a sequence that's present in about 4% of our population. 4%? That seems incredibly specific. It gets more incredible. Elena pulled up the data on her pad. I cross-referenced this gene sequence with our evolutionary history. It appears to have emerged about 200,000 years ago, around the time of a significant evolutionary leap in human development. The same time we developed complex language and advanced tool use. Kethlan's tentacles stilled, a sign of deep thought. You're suggesting this isn't coincidence? I'm suggesting something that sounds impossible but fits the data. Elena took a breath. What if humans and Vraxians share a common ancestor, not recently but deep in the past? What if some form of panspermia or ancient visitation left genetic markers in both species? The implications were staggering. Yilan, who had been listening, added her own discovery. The harmonic frequency of their purring matches exactly with human brainwave patterns during deep meditation. No other species in our database has this correlation. Over the following days, more pieces of the puzzle emerged. The cubs' play behavior mirrored that of human children at similar developmental stages. Their problem-solving approaches showed patterns that human researchers found intuitively familiar, while alien observers found them cryptic. Then came the breakthrough that changed everything. Elena was reviewing the records from the Cubs' rescue when she noticed something in the background of one image. Vraxian script on a bulkhead. She'd been learning to read it and realized it was a passenger manifest. "Sanctuary AI, can you enhance this image?" The AI complied, and Elena read the manifest with growing amazement. The ship hadn't been just any colony vessel. It had been carrying a group of Vraxian researchers who had been studying ancient ruins on their homeworld. Ruins that, according to their preliminary reports, suggested their species had been visited by an advanced civilization millennia ago. Elena immediately contacted the Galactic Archaeological Database. After hours of searching, she found what she was looking for: images from the Vraxian ruins showing symbolic representations. Some symbols were uniquely Vraxian, but others bore an uncanny resemblance to pictographs found in ancient human sites on Earth. "Kethlan," Elena called urgently, "I need you to see this." The director arrived quickly, and Elena presented her findings. The evidence was circumstantial but compelling. Ancient visitation to both worlds, genetic markers, behavioral parallels, and now, these orphaned cubs responding to a human as if recognizing something fundamental and familiar. "If this is true," Kethlan said slowly, "it would revolutionize our understanding of galactic history. And these cubs are the living proof," Elena finished. "They're young enough that their instincts are pure, unclouded by learned behavior. They recognize something in humans that adult Vraxians might not consciously perceive." As if understanding they were being discussed, the three cubs surrounded Elena, purring in harmony. VX3 placed her paw on Elena's hand, and in that moment Elena felt something she couldn't quite explain. A connection that transcended species, reaching back through time to something ancient and shared. The discovery led to immediate action. A joint human-Vraxian archaeological team was formed to investigate the ruins on both worlds. Genetic studies were initiated to trace the mysterious markers, and most importantly, a breeding pair of adult Vraxians volunteered to meet with humans carrying the specific gene sequence. The adult meeting was tense at first, but when the female Vraxian met Dr. Sarah Kim, a geneticist from Korea who carried the markers, something shifted. The Vraxian's eyes widened and she spoke a single word in her own language that later translated to cousin kin, a term that hadn't been used in their culture for thousands of years. Back at the sanctuary, Elena watched the cubs play in the evening light. They'd grown considerably in the months since her arrival, and their unique position as bridges between two species made them invaluable. Plans were already underway to create a special facility where human and Vraxian young could be raised together, learning from each other. VX1 bounded over to Elena, dropping a stick at her feet, a game they'd developed that was essentially fetch. As she threw it, she marveled at the journey that had brought them together. The cubs had been terrified of everyone except humans, and specifically humans like her. Now she understood why. They weren't just different species finding common ground. They were distant family, reuniting after eons of separation. The cubs had known it instinctively, responding to something deeper than learned behavior, a genetic memory of kinship that transcended the vast distances between stars. As the binary, sun set over Kepler 442b, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold, Elena sat with the three cubs curled around her. VX3's head rested on her lap, VX2 pressed against her side, and VX1 stood guard nearby. The fear that had defined them was gone, replaced by the security of family rediscovered. The discovery would change both species forever. Human and Vraxian, ships would explore together, searching for signs of their common benefactor. Scientists would unravel the genetic mysteries that bound them. But for Elena, sitting in the growing darkness with three alien cubs who had chosen her as their surrogate parent, the cosmic implications mattered less than the simple truth of connection. The cubs had hidden from all others but ran to humans, without fear. Now everyone understood why. They recognized something that transcended species, something written in their very DNA. They recognized family, however distant, however impossible it seemed. In the sanctuary's records, the case would be remembered as the discovery that changed galactic history. But for Elena and the Cubs, it was simpler than that. It was coming home.